A story told by an old crone who seemed too much. Cackle, cackle. Gather round, my pretties, for this old hag has a tale to tell. A tale of creatures most foul, of a mother's heart broken, and of how the wild beasts taught wisdom that the civilized world had forgotten. Adjusts her crooked hat and peers through milky eyes. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, or perhaps closer than you think, dearie la la land, maybe, there lived a mother whose voice had been stolen by wicked spellcasters. These weren't ordinary witches. Oh no! These were the Council of Shadows servants, those who bow and scrape before the great deceiver himself, licking his hooves for scraps of power, coughs and spits into the fire. The Shadows servants wore fine robes and carried important papers, claiming they protected the innocent. But this old hag knows better. They were collectors, you see. Collectors of little souls, snatching children from their mother's arms, like ravens stealing shiny trinkets. The silencing our poor mother sat in the corner of their grand chambers, her lips sealed by their dark magic. Every word she tried to speak turned to ash in her mouth. Speak up, they commanded, but their own spells prevented her voice from reaching the air. Waves gnarled fingers. The shadow servants had convinced everyone that the mother was the dangerous one. Look how quiet she sits, they whispered. Surely someone so silent must be hiding terrible secrets. But we wise old hags know the truth. They had simply stolen her power to speak. The little birds. Meanwhile, her precious little birds, two beautiful daughters, were placed in golden cages, told it was for their own protection. But the cages grew smaller, and the songs grew sadder, and the little birds began to forget they had ever known how to fly. Shakes head sadly. The shadow servants fed them crumbs of lies. Your mother doesn't want you, they whispered. She chose her own comfort over your safety. Before we continue, this is the Parody of Life, brought to you from La La Land. Do you want to hear more fairy tales? Do you want to hear more stories? Or do you want to learn how to love yourself? Or just go out in life with a peace in your mind and soul? Don't forget to subscribe and like. You would make my day. Let's go on a ride. But the little birds' hearts remembered the truth, even when their minds grew confused. The zoo, Zita the sassy zoo, oh my, of wisdom. One day, broken and defeated, our mother wandered to a place where wild creatures lived behind barriers, a place where the civilized folk came to stare at untamed spirits. But instead of despair, she found teachers, eyes gleaming. There she met the alligator mothers, fierce, patient, knowing. They taught her, little hag, we may be called monsters, but we protect our young with everything we have. We wait, we watch, we remember who threatens our babies. The lions showed her, roar when the time is right, not when they expect it. The elephants whispered, we never forget, memories are power. And the wolves howled. The pack survives by loyalty to each other, not to those who would separate us. Cackles knowingly the great revelation you see. My pretties, this old hag learned something delicious. The shadow servants weren't just randomly cruel. Oh no! They served a much greater darkness. Their master, the great deceiver, had a special hunger for the pure energy of broken families. The more mothers and children they separated, the more powerful their dark lord became, leans in conspiratorially, and the most wicked part, the kingdom's rulers knew. They signed papers and made proclamations saying, "How interesting that so many families are broken. How curious that so many children disappear into our systems," but they just shrugged and counted. Their gold. The mother's transformation. But here's where the tale gets juicy. Darius, the mother, armed with the wisdom of the wild beasts, began to transform. No longer the silent mouse in the corner. She grew claws and teeth. She learned the alligator's patience, the lion's roar, the elephant's memory, and the wolf's loyalty, voice rising. She discovered she could speak after all, but not in their chambers of lies. She could speak in the wild places, where truth still had power. She learned to speak in stories and songs, in ways the shadow servants couldn't understand or control. The prophecy and this old hag tells. You know, the story isn't over. For when the little birds grow strong enough to break their golden cages, when they remember their mother's true voice, when they see through the shadow servants' lies, cackles wickedly, that's when the real reckoning begins. The alligator mother is waiting. You see, patient, watchful, ready, final cackle. And that, my pretties, is why this old hag sits by her fire, stirring her pot, and watching the shadows dance. Because some stories take time to unfold, and some justice takes time to serve. But both are coming, sure as the moon rises, and the shadow servants bow to their dark master. The moral: remember this tale well, little ones. Sometimes the ones they call monsters are the real protectors, and sometimes the ones who claim to protect are the real monsters. And always, always trust the wisdom of the wild beasts over the lies of the civilized servants of darkness. The old hag cackles one final time and disappears into the smoke. The truth is rarely spoken, but always revealed, especially when told by those who dare to speak from the shadows. An old hag's wisdom, or just maybe the truth was made into a fairy tale with another name of the characters. Who knows, right? Because one thing I have learned over the years is that some things were never meant to change if you try. You will be punished, right? You have heard an episode from La La Land, the Parody of Life. Do you want to hear more fairy tales? Do you want to hear more stories? Or do you want to learn how to love yourself, or just go out in life with a peace in your mind and soul? Don't forget to subscribe and like. You would make my day. This episode was sponsored by ZZZZ.bio. Love you all, Zita.